Hey everybody, welcome to For the Record, which is a conversation series presented by Grey Matter, where we talk to music heads about their stories and the music that makes them. It's great to have you here, Laura.
Appreciate it. Happy to be here.
So at the beginning of this, we like to start at the beginning and hear a little bit about your origin story, where you're from, and kind of the beginning of your relationship with music.
Oh boy.
Mhm.
Um, let me turn off my Slack notifications so we don't interrupt me in the future. For 2 hours. Let's see. I mean, technically, I was singing before I was speaking.
Cool.
Um, Super early on, my parents used to play this Andrea Bocelli album in the car, and I started singing Vivo por ella as, like, this little baby in the car, and they turned around and they're like, "She hasn't even said mommy yet." And I was singing operatic in the back of the car, and,
Cool.
I think I I mean, my mother and my father were both well, my mother's more a musician, but my mother and my father were both, like activist musicians, like, they would, like, take their guitar and go to rallies, and, there was so much singing in the house, and my mother is a songwriter. So, when I was really small, I wrote my first little jazz song that was called "I'm Gonna Sing on the Moon Tonight," and I would sing it nonstop, like a broken record, and as I grew older, I was always part of choir, I was always part of band, I really loved, really just loved, like, the vibration of singing. It calmed me a lot as a kid. Looking back, I don't know what that means, but I definitely, like, zoned out somewhere, and I started writing a little more formally when I was in, middle school, and there's this whole book of songs that I Taylor Swift style wrote with, my best friend at the time. High school things got a little more serious. I trained classically and jazz for vocal, had 2 bands through high school, competed for Puerto Rico in the, World Championship of Performing Arts, and all of this was around singing, songwriting, composition, and yeah, that's where it starts. I was just a very musical little kid.
Cool. That's amazing. Um, Yeah, first, what you were saying about the vibrations, that really resonates. Brought something to mind. I think I read somewhere that it's actually quite important to sing because it like stimulates the vagus nerve. One of them is, is
Hours and hours in the car, just, like, slowly shifting harmony, and that as well was, like, very, very, very meditative for me.
mm,
Um, all the little, like, laptop recordings I made of all my songs, I would sing, like, 6 or 7 voices over all different strange harmonies because yeah, such a satisfying feeling.
yeah, yeah, definitely, it definitely is. So what became of the music that you created, as a kid and as a teenager? Does it still exist? Is it with us somewhere on the internet?
If I mean, can of worms, but if you go to SoundCloud, let me see, a lot of it should still be up, and you'll hear it's like the voice of a little kid. Um, let's see, it's probably Laura Tamara Jaramillo, like, just my full name. Um, I think stuff I wrote is like I don't know, I was very moody as a kid, but, um, the music was very, like, narrative based and catharsis driven, like, it was all about, um I would write songs about, like, really, really, like, tragic, difficult moments that these different characters were going through and kind of
Mm,
follow an emotional journey from start to finish, and I would sing these songs at this poetry reading that happened every week in Puerto Rico, and the people that resonated with the most were, like, the elderly that would come up to me after singing and just say, like, "Thank you." Like,
oh,
I
cool.
needed that, like, I needed that feeling, and for the longest time, I thought I would go into music therapy because I was like, "Wow, if music, right, like the combination of words and melody can guide someone through those same emotional processes, right? Because you're essentially punctuating language with the emotional language of music.
Mm.
Um, Suddenly you have like medicine, like audible medicine, and that I was so excited about that as a kid.
I love that. Audible medicine. I'm writing that down for something.
Your next
Uh,
podcast.
yeah. Um, no, that's beautiful. So, as you're doing this, like, you mentioned you got us up to, I think high school, and you thought you were going to be a music therapist. You didn't become a music therapist, but obviously got, a lot of value just of, through the act of being with music and like the vibrations and sound. So what happened after that? What did you go next?
Right. So that competition I did, the World Championship of Performing Arts in LA.
Mm.
Um, I won a lot of medals, and I got approached by a label. I think it was quite literally like Phil Collins's label.
Cool.
And yeah, crazy. And they wanted me to drop out of high school, move to LA, and become a Latin pop star.
Mm.
And that was so the opposite of my music and of my style. And it felt, I don't know, like I even as a small kid, I was like, I feel like they're kind of like sexualizing me as this little kid and trying to package me as a product, right? And it was so disheartening, like such a clash with reality. And I had a choice in high school to either pursue music and go to a conservatory or pursue design because I was also extremely passionate about design, graphic design, painting, fine art. And I sort of had a come to Jesus moment where I was like, I can commodify my art, like I can commodify my design. I cannot commodify my music, and I'm
Mm.
never gonna do that. So I ended up going to RISD and Brown, because
Mm.
that felt like the closest thing to like a choose your own adventure. And
Mhm.
I kept singing. Like I was part of like the most challenging a cappella group. I had a folk band. I would record vocals and for samples. I like and I kept writing. Like I kept writing my music, but that's when it became a lot more like just for me and not something that I was necessarily sharing beyond,
Yeah.
the little performances you do with your a cappella group.
Yeah. Um, cool. Well, I mean, like, props to you for having the wherewithal as, a relatively young person to know that about yourself that you didn't wanna I mean, it's so easy to get, kind of coerced into that path. I think it happens all the time. Um, and, yeah, I mean, I imagine having activist musician parents had something to do to do with it. Um,
Yeah.
I'm curious what music was in the household, as you were growing up, stuff that wasn't being made by you or your parents. What were you listening to?
Yes. So the earliest music that was like really hitting me was Andrea Bocelli's pop music. So that Vivo por ella.
Mhm.
Silvio Rodrigo, he's like again like an activist singer-songwriter from Cuba. His music, even if you don't speak Spanish, will make you cry. It's like some of the most beautifully written, like he does everything from orchestral organizations to just like a simple guitar and voice. And his voice is terrible, but it's also beautiful and haunting. and um and then Mecano, which is I think they're from Venezuela, but they're like again, feel like the mixture of those three bands slash musicians, like all of that really informed like how much I respected songwriting.
Mm.
Um, and then growing older in the house, my dad was obsessed with Phil Collins. So we had like the Brother Bears soundtrack constantly playing in the car. My mom is big into Puerto Rican music, so just constant amounts of like salsa merengue every Christmas. And I I, like, funnily enough, was drawn to the most random music. Like, if I remember, it was, like, uh, a lot of boy band singer-songwriter. I think I had a Green Day phase at one point,
Sounds
early
real.
Taylor Swift, like, all these, like, folk-ish inspired pop, and I remember distinctly only liking sad music. Like, I really only wanted it if it made me feel something really intensely.
Mhm.
Um, and then I think my biggest sort of, like, obsession for a while was, Bon Iver. Like, I lost it for him in high school.
Makes sense. It ticks all the boxes you just said. It's
Oh, yeah.
pretty
Exactly.
accessible, it has some pop sensibilities, incredibly sad, like deeply felt
Like,
music.
John Vernon, like, you feel me.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, yeah, also your dad must have been, like, really stoked, as a Phil Collins fan when Phil Collins' label approached you.
Oh, yeah, he was like, "Are you kidding me? You gotta do this." It's like,
Yeah.
"Dad, it's, like, not even that much money, and I will never be able to write my own music again," and he's like, "Ah," and I was like, "And I'm dropping out of school," and he's like, "Ah,
But Phil Collins.
what about Phil Collins?"
Um, cool. Okay, so then, you went to RISD, you went to Brown, you went to, the visual art, route. What happens after that?
What happens after that? That was a lot of jazz, like, a lot of the real book, the fake book, just because that was what I was, like, soaking in my extracurriculars. I started listening to let me see if I can find it's been a long time since this era of my life.
Okay.
Do, 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 do. Ah, let's see. Montel Fish was someone that I was really into. Was honestly, like, very into supporting, like, my friends who were musicians, because I had very little time for myself, and the little time I had for myself, I was, like, practicing.
Mhm.
Um, I tried to give my streams to, like, one of them's called Baird, he actually blew up after college, Matt Baer as well, Lawrence the Band, um, like, just tried to immerse myself in the music that was being made around me,
Mm.
and let's see. And then there was an era of, like, Rex Orange County and all that, like, funk pop that
Mm.
really, really took me by storm in college.
Cool.
But yeah, I would say the biggest influence was real book and fake book jazz.
Mm. Cool. I mean, eventually you wound your way into, the narrative that I know about you is rooted in your most recent endeavor, and I know that there is some time spent doing doing product design, working with Web3, various Web3 orgs and communities. And I'm curious how you first got pulled into the on-chain world.
Fun story. Um, I graduated into the pandemic and was trained as a furniture maker with a gender studies and urban studies degree.
Mhm.
So truly 3 things that won't get you a job generally, and certainly won't get you a job in a global pandemic.
Mhm.
Um, so I rebranded myself as a product designer because I had taught myself product design in college because I loved that, anything that you could imagine and anything that you could envision, you could definitely build. And that was
Mhm.
not the truth for building with my hands because certain machines I couldn't use. They were not designed for someone with, like, my weight or my height or my strength, and that was extremely frustrating because even though
Mm.
you have a vision of what you wanna make, when you're physically limited, be it by resources or body, right, there's nothing worse. So, I found a lot of solace in building in a digital space, and, I applied for this Google internship for product design where I spent, like I think I spent, like, 30 hours working on this like onboarding tool app proposal. And I submitted it and I was super proud and I had my graphic design friends like look over it. They said, "Oh, this is really good." They give me feedback. And then the letter I got back from Google was that nothing in my coursework showed that I had the skill set to make this, and they basically assumed that I'd had someone else do it.
Wow,
And
big
yeah,
assumption.
it was terrible. I was like, "No, I swear, like I swear I made this." And so anyway, I'm graduated in the pandemic, and I think back to that, I was like, I loved that. And I positioned myself as a product designer. I was juggling like 6 different freelance gigs, mostly around design, product design, marketing, and it was truly out of nowhere that I got a message from a girl that I had TA'd while I was at RISD, who had found herself as the creative director of this company called Upshot Technologies, and
Mhm.
they had just gotten us like a funding round, and they were looking to build out the team. And she saw that I was a product designer now, and no one was saying yes to her because this was like pre NFT boom, pre anything.
Right.
But I had had sort of like a history with, blockchain tech, just at least Bitcoin, because my friends were mining it in middle school, and in college, I did graphic design work for a Bitcoin education company called BitBuddy. So when she approached me and said that she was part of a blockchain company that was doing things on the Ethereum blockchain with, these like pictures on chain, I was like, "You know what? I know 80% of what you're talking about right now. I'm totally in. If there's healthcare and a salary, like sign me up." And I was the only designer that they'd ever had or ever met that knew anything about the blockchain and how any of this worked. So very quickly was promoted to like head of product, and that just gave me like a bird's eye view of the industry because suddenly I was C-suite in this small startup right at the intersection of DeFi and NFTs, and the CEO of this company like really really loves to socialize and really loves to get in the mix and brings his crew along with him. So I was meeting every founder in the space. That was my exposure to FWB. Um, but yes, totally a happy accident.
That's amazing. I guess these things happen. There are like these moments of inflection in life, and if you're kind of down to ride the wave, they can really take you places.
Totally, totally, and I love building. Like, I think that's just in general, I love the creative act. I love the process of creating something, like, whether it's music, whether it's product, whether it's furniture, right? Like, I get so excited about that. So, I think generally, right, people like having me around because 'cause I'll push things forward, and and
Important.
I hold things to a very, very high standard. So, um, I think right place at the right time during the last cycle to basically be the type of person that people wanted to have on their team to help them execute, and also had the sensibility to not wanna join bullshit projects or do things that I didn't believe in.
Mhm.
Notably, I like their hackathon series, getting everyone in the community to work together and build together, and, like, there's so many, like, treasured memories from that, and also, like, the psychedelia of all these different characters and all of this happening all at once, and I'm like, "Oh, no, why it's me, but we're here."
Yeah. Cool. Yeah, and then then there's the story of what you're doing now, which you've shared with me, but I want to make sure you can share here as well because it kind of dovetails all of these things into one across music to blockchain and your high standards and ideals that you hold for how the music industry can not be so shitty.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, call back to episode 1 where she was
Yeah.
a singer-songwriter with an activist singer-songwriter mom.
Hmm.
Um, it was in the time that I was at FWB and seeing a lot of people from the music industry or from culture, especially creatives, come into the space, try and create tools to support their careers. And I didn't see something that would have helped someone like me or something that would have helped someone like my mother. Um, if anything, I understood the music industry enough to understand that its deeper issues or its issues are a lot deeper than what like the merch that you can sell to a fan, and that's essentially what I felt was being reproduced on chain, was like, we're creating digital vinyl, we're creating digital merch, and I'm like, "That's great if you have an audience for that, but that's not gonna it's not gonna be your lifeblood, and that's certainly not gonna incentivize someone to, like, take a deeper step, right, into supporting your career."
Mhm.
So, I basically set myself the challenge, not thinking it would be a company, but set myself the challenge of designing a protocol that would sustain the career of someone like my mother and would be accessible to someone like her. And ultimately, right, design a protocol that rewards good music because good music and good musicians should be rewarded, but that uses the success of every musician, right, to hold up everyone in that ecosystem and in turn reward the people that are supporting artists in this ecosystem. And I mean, the TLDR and how Sona works, or its very base principle, is that um, every song in this ecosystem, right, earns protocol fees or USDC based on how much it's streamed. But the fees come from the fact that an artist can sell a song to a fan, and in doing that, they share the rewards that are coming out for that song with that fan, and it's transaction fees from those sales, right? So from that support that fans are showing artists that support the streaming payouts. And that same function can be applied to merch sales, to ticket sales, right? It's like a little bit off the top of all the ways that we show up for creatives, supplementing how we pay out listening to their music. And I was trying to get other people to build it for the longest time because I
Mhm.
had two or three jobs sort of going back and forth.
Mhm.
And eventually I met my co-founder on on that airplane, that flight going to Miami,
Mhm.
and we connected for every other reason in the world. And I tweeted really cryptically about like music NFTs without selling your rights or like constantly having to come up with perks and benefits. And she, immediately tapped me. It's like, what is this?" I told her the idea and she was like, you gotta do this and you have to let me help you because I want to use this and I want my artists to use this. So that's how Sona came to be. It was like if it could work for my mom and if it could work for her, Toki Monster, then then maybe it was something that should exist.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I mean, two artists in completely, different phases of their, of their careers, and probably with different, overall intentions for what they want to get out of their careers. But to have a platform, that can serve them both is really powerful. So yeah, I mean, I think, as you know, I spent a lot of time looking at the intersection of music and Web3 and music and technology broadly, and I think the way that you're building Sona to, coalesce these worlds, Web2 and Web3, dealing with the plexus, the convoluted mess that is music licensing, and being able to do that, like you've done it in a way that's pretty seamless, and it's a cool platform.
Thank you. Well, that was the biggest puzzle, right? I remember there was a moment maybe like a year ago now where I realized that the legal team, the product team, the engineering team, and my BD, that there was didn't realize that there was like a gaping hole in what the commercial model was. And I was like, guys, like, don't you see it? And I sat down one night and I was like, someone give me all the rules. Someone give me all the rules in music licensing, like everything, and I'll make it make sense. And I literally sat down and wrote out our commercial mod, and I was like, look, all parties happy. Let's go. and had our and had our legal team drafted together in a memo, and they're like, yeah, this is viable. And I was like, yeah, of course it is, because you just you just like give yourself the constraints of what has to be met, but you can always design something, to achieve the goal you want with whatever constraint might be there. And I think
Mhm.
ultimately it's been interesting, right? Like in designing for the most complex situations, um, like hopefully, right, we've designed something that other people can use and other people can integrate and other people can learn from, and I don't know, try and shake up the system a little bit with it.
Totally. Yeah, I mean, I have high hopes. I feel optimistic, and thanks for doing the work and building the thing.
Thank you. Doing my best, trying my
Yeah.
hardest.
Um, Cool. Cool. At this point, I'd love to transition more into the sort of Q&A portion of the conversation where I ask you about some of your music listening habits and things like that.
Right, right,
Um,
right.
First, I would love to hear how you discover music primarily today.
How I discover music.
Mhm,
Okay, so in the last year, I started dating a Berliner.
mhm.
So a lot of discovering music now is Shazamming 8-hour sets at Berghain. Or Panorama Bar. It's like out of this world what people mix together out there.
Yeah,
It's a lot of
sure.
that. But a lot through recommendations. Like people tend to send me sort of like music as gifts. Um, my sibling playlists for me every year. And I also love going down kind of like the radio slash similarity search rabbit hole. So I'll be often in Spotify, but now I also use a tool called Cyanite, which does AI similarity search.
Cool.
Yeah, they're really cool. We're integrating them on Sona.
Okay.
But essentially, right, to like follow a little trail. And something I really like doing as well is reading the bios on SoundClouds and Spotify's, and sort of reading about their different like an artist's musical journey and their collaborators and previous bands, right? And just like the narrative of like what's behind these people. Like when I found out that Daphne was Caribou, or that
Yeah,
Fortet was also this like the crazy Unicode, I was like, "Ah," but it all
yeah,
makes sense. Now I hear it, like
yeah, yeah, yeah. We've really done ourselves a disservice by abstracting that context away from our listening experience. So
Yeah, the divorcing it is terrible because so much of why you end up loving music, right, is because of the story behind it, or understanding like the mastery, right? Like this guy named Olaf Dreiger. I don't know how to pronounce his name. He's German, but
mm,
incredible mastery of like of mastering, mixing, producing. Like it's like virtuosic work.
mm,
And you only really get a sense of like how crazy he is, like reading his story. But if you just hear one song, you're like, wow, that's really sick. But you don't get the texture of like understanding that it's a master at work, right? Or DVS1 and all of his music. It's like it could pass you by, or you could like sit there and realize,
I know it's really unfortunate because yeah, I think we have to make room for not just the additional concept or the additional context that sits side by side with the music, these stories, but also the conceptualists that challenge our ideas and conceptions of like what music is in the first place.
yeah.
Um, like I spent a lot of my early music journalism focused on the weird avant-garde experimentalists who like grew out of journalism and like doing these long form interviews with these people who like if you listen to their music, it's not like you're not going to sit down at your computer or like have a listening party or something and listen to their music because it's crazy. It's like strange, abstract, very avant-garde, just a bunch of noises, but the ways in which they do it and the ways in which they piece them together and the reasons that they're doing it like are incredibly important, and you can trace that lineage through the course of music history and see how those ideas made made more popular streams more interesting, and like that's just incredibly important.
It's like poetry, right? It's like you can read a poem and yeah, it hits you, whatever, or you can read a poem and like
Yeah,
understand all the context, all the
that's
homage, all the illusion, right? And you're like, wow,
yeah,
that's incredible. Three
yeah,
lines.
indeed. Yeah, that's perfect. You can read a poem or you can fucking read a poem.
Read a poem.
Um, Cool. So I'm curious if you remember the first album you ever purchased, and then the most recent album that you
The
purchased.
first album I ever purchased. Oh my gosh. Um, I feel like it was, which one was it? I was like 4 years old and I bought it because of the cover, definitely. Um, But I think it was, like, Shakira's first album, like, when she still had black hair, and it was I bought it in a like, in a gas station because I was like, "There's a laundromat on the and then I was obsessed with always this corny. I bought a Jason Mraz album, and it was made out of white paper, and all of it was, like, covered in doodles, and I was like, "This is amazing."
Yeah.
And I actually recorded a little album when I was, in elementary school, and I swear to God, I spent more time designing, like, the inserts and, like, the lyric pages that you would open up and read because I was like, "It's all part of the experience."
Yeah, totally. Should be, it should be. At least there should be the opportunity for it to be part of the experience.
Totally. And I mean, most recently, um, I couldn't buy the album, but I went on Bandcamp and like supported. But Olaf Driedger, that same guy, Rosa Rugosa, the EP, like
Cool.
I think you would be really into it. But those three songs have been rocking my world for a while now.
All right, I'll listen to that immediately after this.
Rosa Rugosa.
Rosa Rugosa. Cool. Cool. Okay, who are three artists of note that you heard for the first time in the past year-ish?
Year-ish, I would say Rochelle Jordan, definitely like an absolute legend. Um, Pantera Kraus as well was the first time I heard him this year. Um, and that the Fortet Anon that is all of that crazy Unicode that I'll never be able to do. But those are super influential for me this year.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, because like Rochelle blends sort of like dance electronic with R&B in like this really sexy, new, beautiful way. Pantera Klaus, just Birthday Club blew my mind. Again, the producing on it is insane. And then Fortet. Who knew? Who knew? I thought it was this like guy in Japan like going crazy, and then he got booked at Berghain, and they were like, "It's Fortet." I was like, "It's Fortet? There's no way it's Fortet."
Wow, cool. That reminds me, yeah, Forte has been maintaining a Spotify playlist for years, and it's also like very obscure, and like isn't attributed to him, and it's called like some crazy like 08
Yes,
Z.
that's it.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes, and also, Ben UFO, I discovered this year.
He's
I mean,
man,
you know, DJ, but again, like, incredible, incredible stuff.
he is really good. Vanguard is great. Um, cool. Okay, what's the most underappreciated artist from your favorite music decade?
Most underappreciated artist from my favorite music decade. Oh my goodness. Uh, it's just again, like, so sporadic and all over the place with me. I'm like, "What decade was that? And are they underappreciated, or are they just everybody knows them?"
It's
I
pretty
would say, like, early on, Silvio Rodrigo, like, does not have as much acclaim in the US as I think he should.
hmm.
When was he writing? I believe the '80s? Like, that guy's old. Let me see if I can find but that music is, like, the heart and soul of so much, like, Latin American lyricism and poetry and, like, just doesn't seem to I mean, no one knows him
Yeah.
in the US, so, yeah. Hopefully, this
I'm
gives him some streams.
I I must admit I am not familiar, so he will get at least a few streams from me.
Yes, I'll send you all my favorites from him.
Oh,
He's a
please do.
legend. Yeah.
Cool. All right, cool. This is the big question. You're going to a desert island and you get to bring three records with you. What are they?
Oh, okay. Dyslexia, so it's only ever the image.
Let me see.
See if
Oh
I
no,
mean,
I don't.
22 Million was also amazing, but no, there was one with Blood Bank.
The one with Blood Bank on it.
Let me
Uh,
see.
I think it's called Blood Bank.
It's called Blood. No, nope. That's yes, yes. Okay, no. So that's the EP for
That's the
Emma.
key,
Let me
right?
see.
Um,
Was
um,
it for Emma forever ago? And I just also love Blood Bank. That could totally also be it.
I mean, Forever
But
Forever is, and that's like the OG Bon Iver
that
record.
was that was like my go to sleep playlist was literally just that album. And people were like, "Why don't you just play the album?" I'm like, "No, no. No, no, no. It's important that I put them here." And then Romantic Works by Keaton Henson. I think if I were on a desert island with no one, like that whole album again is like a very meditative, beautiful, thoughtful experience. But he coming back to my roots on sad music, but I
I
like it.
love that. I've always been a bit predisposed to sad music myself. Never really a sad person, but there's like, I don't know, something that
Right?
about sad music that just like really resonates and makes you feel
And I would
really
also throw Cherry by Daphne in there for the non-sad moment. But yeah.
nice. Cool.
Yeah, I need my emotional music. I think I've been sort of wrapped up in dance electronic for a year now, and every time I hear a song with melody, I'm like, wow, this is almost too much. Like this is it's giving me too much.
Yeah.
But I love
Yeah, I
it.
remember after going through a rave phase when I first moved to New York and just
Mhm.
like being really into it and really excited about it. But then like a couple years went by and then I don't remember what I heard first. It was just like a Neil Young or something, like rediscovering
Right?
Neil Young. Like, damn, maybe that's all I
Yes.
need.
I get it all. So Simon and Garfunkel was one of my biggest influences, like of all time, hands down. Don't know how it didn't come up here, but I think I know every
Right.
single one of their songs, like inside, outside, every harmonies they never came up with. Like
Wow.
I hear one of their songs come on in like a TV show or a movie, and I like start crying because I'm like that was again like each song is its own beautiful, beautiful little vignette.
Yeah.
You don't really get that with 8-hour house sets. Not
No,
quite.
it's for a different mood and purpose, I think.
Totally, totally.
Um, well, this has been amazing, Laura. Thank you so much for telling your story and talk about music. For folks who are listening, who want to follow along, get involved with the work that you're doing, where's the best place for them to do that?
Um, Great question. You can follow me on Twitter at LauraTJD or look up Sona.stream online or app.sona.stream to use it or follow Sona on Twitter. And I think we're just SonaStream.
Cool. And now that you've been through the gauntlet for the record, what other music heads come to mind who we should have on the show?
Ooh. I mean, if you can get Toki Monsta up here, like she's got an incredible, incredible head on her shoulders for music and an amazing story, which I think would resonate with a lot of people. Um, let's see who else, who else. I mean, this is a total wild card. But you could try and get DBS1. I know him. He could be a
Cool.
great person to, because he's also building A Slice, right? Which is like that tool that helps DJs give back to all the producers that they've played on their sets. Um, his name's Zach. I can try and look it up.
That'd be amazing. DVS one's he's from Minnesota too, isn't he?
Hmm. Exactly.
I'm also from Minnesota, so we've got
Oh,
that connection already.
there you go. Instant
Slammed
yes.
up. uh, cool. Yeah, that'd be amazing. Yeah, we can connect on that afterwards. But again, thank you so much, Laura. This is awesome. Really enjoyed chatting with you, and it was really great to hear your story.
Oh,
Good
great to
music.
connect again. I know it's funny. I come from like the corniest music in the world. Wrote a lot of like really sad music. Listened to a lot of sad music, and then suddenly found herself in wherever it is I am now in my taste. But yeah, it's been fun
Yeah,
going through it.
that's how it goes. It's an adventure. Let it take you where it will.
Totally.
Yeah.
Thank you.
For sure. Thanks, Laura. Be well. Be in touch.
You too. Bye bye.
Bye. Take care.